Hi, this is Epic Butter. I've been playing SOULSTRIKE for about a year. Currently one of the #1 ranked players at SOULSTRIKE. What I was doing here was a actual practice run for a speed run that Killer Earth and I were going to do, but instead it kind of turned into a what would I do if I started SOULSTRIKE in 2025? And for some kind of proof of this account age, you can go to title and you can go to true. So yeah, 25 days. As I went through this account, I wanted to go through some tips, go through some steps, and really just make sure that you're doing everything you can to speed up your progression through the game. So one of the first things I want to talk about was really your gear lines. First and foremost, I really want to emphasize what's important. This isn't a game where you want to click this auto equip button. Every single stat line kind of matters. Knowing what you want here is extremely important. What I really like to emphasize here is attack. You probably want one line of skill damage, or at least two in early game. Crit damage is good. Efficacy boost. What this is your win more condition. So water is stronger than fire. By how much? And that is the efficacy boost. So generally these are what you want. You want attack, skill. In the case you're in an ally build, then instead of skill damage, you go for ally damage. Then it is going to be crit damage, final damage, and efficacy boost. So I got pretty lucky where I found this very early on with Charles. He is a merchant, so as soon as you get good lines, you want to keep them. And it's okay to be using like under-leveled items as long as they have the correct line. So even here I have some items that were good for the time I was using them for. Here's an example. This one had skill damage, and I was using that for a while because I didn't have anything better. So that's generally what we talk about in terms of the offensive gear. Now in terms of defensive gear, there's a few things to look for. In the beginning, you're kind of looking for all element boost. This will drop off very quickly as you gain more sources of element boost. However, what won't drop off is all element resistance penetration. This will be kind of ubiquitous. And then later on, if you choose to go the move speed meta, then you want all element resistance penetration and move speed. Now, I like this line of HP recovery per hit because this just kind of helps me not have to use a skill that helps me heal. So this is kind of like my healing line. It saves me a skill slot. I'm very happy with this. And then the skill enchant, Phoenix, one of my favorite skills early game. This is one of my go-to. This should be the first skill you pick on, and we'll get there in a second. Some of the other lines you want is MP up. This is your mana point, your mana pool. So the more mana pool you have, the better. The more skills you can dish out there. There's a gimmick out there that will make everything cost more, so that's really important. Early game defense is fairly important because you don't have a lot of sources of it, so having an early defense is going to be very helpful. And then finally, some of the nice to have, basic attack damage. This is very nice to have. It's not required. This is good for skills that are basic chance on attack. So if you see this freeze, this basic chance on attack, it says it has a 1.6% chance. This damage is based off of that basic attack damage. So that's kind of a really great helpful tip for you because generally they don't list out where this damage comes from, and it could really influence how you play the game. That being said about gear, you probably did notice I have some early game gear that I still hold on to. And a lot of it's because they have these enchants, and I'm just kind of holding on to them just in case, you know, I decide to use them. To recap, you want to make sure, don't click on this auto equip. Offense, attack, skill, crit, efficacy, final damage. And then for defensive items, you want, first and foremost, all element boost, element resistance penetration, mana points, and you want skill cooldown somewhere where I don't actually have it, but you do want it because it influences your allies' abilities to spam skills. So having one in your gear line is going to be required for the end game progression. Now that being said, I talked about Phoenix a little bit earlier here. A lot of times people will run to the Discord and say, hey, I just got my first select ticket. What are the skills I should select? I'm going to go through that real quick and just make some recommendations. So my first recommendation here, when you look at this mythical skill ticket, is to know that some of these can be bought at something called the black market later. So the black market is in the shelter, and this is something that you'll build, you know, midway through getting to hard or early conquerors. Here's the black market. So my black market's not high enough level, but I believe at level 3, that's when you start seeing these mythical skills that you can buy. When I make a recommendation based off of what you can't buy from the black market. That being said, that's generally these skills on the bottom here. This is Radiant Judgment all the way down to Holy Wave. Now my recommendations is from your first skill is going to be Phoenix. At a later level it buffs you. It also provides crowd control damage. It's one of the strongest skills in the game, and it's one of my favorite. And then the second mythical select ticket, you should use Goddess of War. And the reason why you should use Goddess of War is, and it doesn't really matter what build you go with, is because it just creates like a great area. It buffs you, it buffs final damage. It's pretty much really required. And then when you get the enchant, it has a enchant that says more damage to bosses, which is almost required, and it's good enough to fit into any build. So it's important, it's good. So you have these two skills as your first two mythical skills. Now when it comes to allies, I'm going to kind of say the same thing. You want to pick allies that aren't in the black market, and that's going to be from Scarlet all the way down to, and the most recent one is Avalanche. Avalanche isn't actually in the tickets yet, and I think Ignis is, but the two skills that we want, or the two allies we want, is going to be Ran, mainly because she, again, is one of the best buffers in the game, and one of the best allies in the game, but she also does some crowd control. Her dragon spirits can stun the enemy, and that can trigger something called break. And that's similar with Aisha. She creates a AoE that can cover a large area of the map. So with those two in mind, you have a lot of great buffing and damage as well as area of effects. So those are your two starter allies to pick from your select tickets. Everyone else you can get slowly through the black market. When it comes to relics, you kind of have the same thing. Everything, I believe, from Dark Catalyst on is not available in the black market. So my recommendation for your first mythical relic ticket is going to be Wise Lord's Ring. For every ally, you get 24% more skill damage. It adds up, and then when you get the enchant, it goes even more wild. So one of my favorites, it's great. Now for the second one, I think it's kind of a toss-up. I probably should have selected Ancient Beasthide. I actually opted for Fighter's Balance Scale. Kind of regret it, but I'm still learning. And then when you get your first Mythical Pet ticket, I went with Cinder mainly because it has fire crit damage, and that's going to be very rare for you early game. And if you're not a fire main and you want to play water, you want to play wind, you want to play physical, I would recommend go for one of these pets that have critical elemental damage. So that's kind of the big what to picks. Now, one of the things I really want to go through is also the class and how that works. Generally in this game, it's not like other idle games where you can kind of pick and choose what you want and you can reset and you get the resource back. Once you dump it in there, it's gone. However, it has passives. So all these unique effects, they were added on. So they're never wasted. They're just kind of spent. That being said, as you gain classes, you always want to put resources into the highest one you can use. And right now you see that I have this equipped. However, that's because my Swordmaster is not actually high enough level to cover the difference. So I'll actually be a little weaker, but I am dumping resources into this one. So eventually I'll catch up. And I'm still getting stronger as I do that. But once this reaches that a certain level and it evens out, that's when I'll make the swap. What I think I'll do then is I'll do a tile takeover, and that should show you, the importance of AoE effects. So I'm gonna go to this tile that I have. I'm gonna lower the level a little bit because some of these skills aren't leveled. And tile takeover is kind of its own unique instance where you don't really have to worry about like what stage level you're on. You just need to worry about your skill set and your overall starting ability. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna release my tile, and I'm gonna go ahead and run a tile takeover. So here I have Aisha, I have Duke, I have Yvette, I have Ran, I have Thunder Fury, I have Phoenix, Unbound, Ma, Frozen Sanctuary, and Magnetic Storm. So these are the AoE effects I have. This is how I'm scoring those huge numbers for tile takeover. So what you see here is just utter destruction. We're just trying to do as much AoE damage as possible. So we're trying to cover as much area as possible. As your skills get better and bigger, you're going to be able to really get those scores much higher. 400. That's not bad, but I'll tell you that it's much higher than anyone else on the field. Yeah, that's me. That's kind of baby butter right now. What I've done recently is I just upgraded to Swordmaster, I think yesterday. My next stage is to really update the slate so that I can hopefully make a rush to pets. What I'm buying every day is, I think it's worth it to buy the class tickets. And as long as you're still required to have green construction items, I would recommend you buy them because it's going to be the fastest way for you to like really get to the blue items and really get your construction underway. And I think it's worth it. It's costs a lot. So as soon as you get to all blue material that are required, then I would stop buying ore and timber. This Seed Thief key is probably one of the most important items to buy here on a daily basis. Arguably, the rest of these is kind of a toss-up. It just depends on what your needs are. Generally, the recommendation is for Orcish key because it gives you the most direct boost. Afterwards, it's probably the Relic key because that gives you rare resources. This one will help you level your allies and skills, and this one will help you level your training because it gives you silver, it gives you gold, and it also gives you class material. Now, as you can see, this account didn't buy the daily pass. The only thing it bought was the ads, ad free. Really, I wanted to show that like you can get fairly competitive without spending too much. And then for this, the heart exchange, I'll go through what I usually like to pick. So for early accounts in the heart exchange, it's really important to get this once a month because it helps you kind of stabilize and make sure that your class is progressing. They did raise the amount of class tickets that you get quite significantly. So this may be a little less important, but it's fairly important that you get. Generally at level 5, you want to be aware of what is possible. So 3%. So basically, if you see an A grade job, you should probably go for it. Not saying that Bs are bad, but you're going to get a lower amount of heart exchange. So I'm looking for 500 above. Now this is pretty good at 30,000. Is that 30,000? That'll take a while. So I'm going to go for it. I shouldn't have gambled. Oh, here we go. Oh, thank goodness. So A, 600. I want that. I'm going to go there. And this just kind of helps your heart exchange so that you get enough hearts. So this is just one of those daily activities that you're kind of expected to do. And I click auto move. And this is like a new feature that they put in the game after I could teleport everywhere. So I didn't really realize how important it was until the baby account. Oh my gosh, it's such a game changer. Because you can still do other things while you auto move. So it's fairly nice. Now I was talking about the heart exchange and I was talking about what to buy. Fifth element, dream keys, really important. Dimensional crystals, I think you should buy this. And when you can, buy the rare crystals, rare material chest, because this will help you in your shelter. This will help you in making keys. It's just really important. You can get up to 5 times 15 a day. So it may not sound like a lot. It's definitely one of those things that's going to be super helpful as you're building out your shelter. So when it comes to dreaming for new players, and what I mean by dreaming is there's a content mode that's new called Between Dream and Nightmare. And what happens is that you use a key and then you get these dream seeds, and then for every 1,000 you redeem it. Depending on your level, these will drop. And these are all the things that could drop there. The higher level you are, so right now I'm level 11, the more seeds you get and the more keys you get and all that stuff. That being said, people have asked, like, is it worth it to spend it? I think it's worth to collect until you're a higher level, dream and nightmare level, mainly because at the higher levels, that's where these drops happen more often. So it's one of those compounding. The higher level you are, the better. That being said, my very first nightmare actually dropped these wings that you see. You know, there's a chance. It's a very low chance, but it happened. It happened to me. So, woo. This is kind of my tips and tricks video for new players, just what you need to know in a nutshell. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you liked the video, give a like, subscribe. Thank you so much. This is Epic Butter. It's always a pleasure.